Classic Sarah J. Maas. The drama. The romance. If you have not read A Court of Thorns and Roses, you need to leave immediately and go read it. And just know that if you struggle to get through some of it, that this is going to be worth it. And if you read ACOTAR and you're here just to find out if you should go read this, yes, you should. If you have not read this, now is your time to leave, because I'm gonna go into spoilers, and I promise so hard that you don't want to get spoiled. Let's get into it, shall we? Tamlin and Feyre are engaged, which was like kind of what I wanted in the last book, and I quickly changed my mind. But as time goes by, Feyre starts to have a lot of misgivings about this marriage. She just feels like she's not herself. She's trapped in this house. Because she told Tamlin, she's like, I need to be a part of the conversations going on. I want to know things. Like, please don't just lock me up in this house, expect me to paint all day long in these dresses, and like never do anything. She just saved the entire of Prithian, and now Tamlin basically wants her to retire and won't let her have a say in anything. Even though he says he's trying to like let her into that type of stuff more, it's just, he's just got so much fear around her doing anything that he's gripping too hard. When she is in this stupid wedding dress coming down the aisle, and she starts thinking in her head like, no, someone save me, someone please save me. Rhysand comes in and he decides to call in this bargain where he gets 1 week out of every month. That was part of her in ACOTAR when she was injured and made that deal so he'd heal her. And now he's deciding to cash it in right when she's about to get to the altar, and it is fantastic. And now we have an interesting dynamic because Feyre is being allowed basically into enemy territory, and Tamlin expects her to report back absolutely everything that happens when she's in the Night Court. And for a while she does. Like, she hates the way he talks to her and he like demands information from her, but she still believes it's the greater good at this point to be telling Tamlin information about the Night Court, even though Rhysand hasn't done anything to make her hate him in this book. Last book there were some issues, but now she's thinking like he's not that bad and it feels weird to tell stuff. But the one thing that Feyre asks for pretty much is like, if you train me, I will be able to be a better spy. And Tamlin won't let this happen. He's basically keeping her weak, especially because she has all these powers that the other High Lords gave to her to bring her back to life and turn her into a Fae. We need to talk about Ianthe, the High Priestess, who is the absolute worst and is clearly after Tamlin the whole time. She was supposed to be like officiating their wedding. I was like, this girl is trying to get to Tamlin. And then we find out she's trying to get to Lucian. Tamlin decides that in order to involve Feyre, he's gonna let her sit in on like taxes, basically, where people all bring stuff to Tamlin, and like the whole land is dying. They've just been through this horrible event under the mountain. Nobody has any money, and she sees this really ugly side of Tamlin where he feels like he's, being the stern ruler, but she's like, you couldn't let them off, and he like gets really angry and tells her not to interrupt him, and I just... Rhysand looks better and better every minute. Tamlin's about to go like on a side quest later, and Feyre wants to go. She wants to be involved with everything, and he tells her no, and she's begging him at this point to let her out of the house because she is feeling so incredibly trapped in there. And he keeps saying no, and he gets so angry that he breaks something in the office, and Tamlin does have these like outbursts that are dangerous to Feyre. Like, it's not a good situation, and Feyre is just pleading with Lucian to get Tamlin to let her practice her powers, because we've known that if you keep your powers locked in too much, they start to explode out of you and drive you insane. And so when Feyre gets like the claws that she got from Tamlin, like her shape-shifting ability, Lucian is just like freaked out because he knows that if she can't control it, this is gonna be a major issue for them. And he says he'll try to talk to Tamlin again. Lucian I don't know if he just doesn't try hard enough to like convince Tamlin to do stuff, or if he's like scared of Tamlin, but the next time that he leaves, he locks her inside physically with wards that she's trying to get out, and she realizes just how trapped she is in the Spring Court's like mansion, and she loses her mind. She breaks into like flames, is like screaming. People are trying to help her. Tamlin doesn't realize this because he's outside the wards that he just locked her in. And then Mor comes in and saves her and like picks her up. Alice is there. Like, Alice truly cares about Farah, and she's like, please just like take her, like help her. Like she almost doesn't even care like what Tamlin thinks about it at this point. And Mor takes her to the night court, and who is there pissed that he could feel everything that Farah was feeling down their little tattoo bond, but Rhysand, who, as the exact opposite of Tamlin, did everything he could to free her. And Rhysand is gonna start training her because she has all these powers and he knows that she's gonna lose it, like she did in Tamlin's house. And so they've been doing some like mental shield lessons when she's been going back and forth between Tamlin and Rhysand. And now they're doing like mental lessons about how to get into somebody's mental wards or whatever, because she's accidentally done it to Lucien before and could hear all of his thoughts. She did it to Rhysand, and he thinks it's because his brain shield recognizes Farah because her mental powers came from him. I don't even know if that's a good explanation, but what a great enemies to lovers trope when they wake them up out of a nightmare. Farah's been having these nightmares about being under the mountain and being trapped, and so she wakes up a lot of the time screaming, sometimes on fire, and then starts vomiting immediately. And Rhys opens up that he also has nightmares about being under the mountain. And sometimes it's not him suffering, it's Cassian or Azriel, who we got to meet when we came to Velaris, which is like Rhysand's real home because he has the night court and the palace there, but he's brought her to Velaris, which is like this city that's like absolutely gorgeous and thriving. And for a little bit she was mad. She was like, how could you know that this was here and not take people in? But Rhysand's been really protecting this as like a safe haven, and he was able to keep it from Amarantha for so long and protect the people he loved, including Cassian and Azriel and Mor and all them. We learn a little bit about Amren, the other member of the inner circle. She's so weird. She's like super powerful. She drinks blood. She's not from their world. She's from another realm or something like that. And she ended up in their prison and managed to get out. That's impossible. Like no one knows how she got out. She won't tell them. And she likes to like spider away sparkly things. I picture Amren in my brain as Edna Mode from The Incredibles. That's what she looks like to me. At least when I first met her. As I started to get to know her more, I started to picture her a little differently. But like overall, just Edna. They go to visit the bone carver, who is also still in this prison, and he's like this creepy little dude that can kind of read your mind or your thoughts and reflect himself back to you as that fear. And he lives off of like sad and scary memories. It's so weird. And he carves bones for fun. Anyways, they managed to get out of him that the way to stop the cauldron, which is what the King of Hybern is going to be using to take over Prythian, he tells them that the Book of Breathings is the only way to stop the power of the cauldron. Even if all the High Fae came together and tried to use their powers against the cauldron, it would not be enough. The problem is the Book of Breathings is separated into two pieces, and we don't know where either piece is. On the way out, it's really creepy because Rhys and Farah kind of like try to figure out what the other one saw. And Rhys saw Jurian, who was like the human lover of Amarantha's sister, who killed Amarantha's sister, and then they fought. And if you remember from the last book, she was wearing his eyeball as a ring and his finger as a necklace, so that she could like control his spirit and keep him trapped. But what Farah saw still doesn't quite make sense to me, because she saw a boy with like blue eyes and dark hair who like clearly looks like baby Rhysand, and I just don't know why that scared her so hard. Like what part of Farah was he looking into that he could figure out that that would freak her out? I love the family dynamic of the inner circle, because they've got Amren, their like weird, super powerful vampire friend, and then Mor, despite the fact that she could like decapitate someone with like one little slice, she's like super girly. She loves to like dress up and just go party. She's very charismatic. What's weird is the dynamic of Mor, Azriel, and Cassian. Cassian and Azriel are literally like brothers too. They're all Illyrian warriors, so they all have the bat wings. And Cassian's just a fun time to be around. He's kind of like the one who's always like joking, and like he's a really good warrior, but he also is a lot of the comedic relief for this friend group. Israel is kind of like the other side of that coin. He's very like stoic. He has this extra power that like shadows talk to him, and like when he walks around, like you can see them. Like shadows are like kind of grasping to him and like whispering to him, which I think would drive someone to insanity, but he manages to hold it together, but that's probably why he's a little more like composed. But Azriel seems to be in love with Moore, but Cassian and Moore have this sort of back and forth. I just didn't know how I felt about that, like the whole time I was reading this, like the way they interact with one another. But then of course, like when we go and we talk to the sisters, and we're going to be using Farah's mansion home that she got from Tamlin as like the base between our Fae friends and the human queens, because in theory, the human queens have half of the Book of Breathing. So we're gonna try to convince them that they need to give it to us so that we can stop this war from happening. Because the King of Hybern, if he's not stopped, if the Cauldron is not stopped, he's going to take over not only all of Prythian, but all of the human lands, everyone who lives there. It is a matter of life and death. I went off on a tangent. Cassian meets Nesta, and I love it. I love it. They're all eating dinner, and Farah cannot eat the food, because now, compared to the food that she's been eating in Prythian, like, it tastes disgusting. Like, human food is awful. And so she's having a hard time eating it. And this is really insulting, basically, to her sisters. You know, they put out their best for these Fae warriors, even though they're really uncomfortable around the Fae. Like, Elaine is engaged to someone who hates fairies, and she's got even like a wedding band that has like the metal that's supposed to repel the Fae even though it doesn't. And Nesta gets really angry at Farah. She's like, what, you can't eat our food anymore, it's not good enough for you. Rhys tries to nicely explain that if they come to Prythian and try the food, like they're gonna get it, they're gonna understand why it's less palatable to be eating in the human world. And we're seeing through Farah's perspective, and she's like, Cassian is looking at Nesta like he's found a new opponent. And if we're gonna get multiple enemies to lovers in this series, I would not be mad about it. And Cassian goes off on Nesta. He's like, you are not gonna be disrespectful to her because you did nothing while she went and like had to feed your whole family while she was a human. She came and saved like all the Fae, like, and he's like, don't make fun of her for being a Fae because she did not get to make that choice. And Nesta stares him down and just looks away. Like completely dismissive, and Cassian cannot handle it. Cassian is training Farah, and he's asking her like, do you want to talk about that note that you sent to Tamlin that like you're never coming back? And she's like punching back and forth, and she's thinking about like how wrong that relationship went once Tamlin got his power back, and she's like pissed off and burns through the punching bags. And she has this moment where she breaks down in front of Cassian, Azriel, and Rhysand. It's hard to watch her remember having to kill people under the mountain and all the stuff that she went through and just like trying to work through it on her own. But Rhysand doesn't really coddle her when she has those moments. Like he does obviously care, like he has her stop, but then he is kind of more supportive than like, you don't have to do this, but he's like, we're going to figure out how to use your powers because the fire is from the Autumn Court. And he's like, try to use like my darkness powers or whatever. And she can't do it. And Rhys is like, try thinking of me. How good looking I am. How talented. How arrogant. That too. So we have to go visit the Summer Court because that is probably where the other half of the Book of Breathings is hidden. She's going to have some interesting PR after this trip. And they know this. She's obviously going to be seen with Rhysand. She's going to be seen kind of weird because she has flip-flopped cords, basically. But she has to be there to kind of help spy things out. And part of this includes like heavily flirting with Tarquin, the High Lord of the Summer Court, which is a little awkward. And while they're there, there's this other girl, Cressida, that's really cozy with Rhysand, and I got concerned. I was like, can we not add another love triangle to the love triangle? We didn't, thank goodness, but it was so sad because when she couldn't find Rhysand and Cressida and she thought they were probably together, she was like, I'm not mad. Like, she knows that she and Rhysand aren't a thing, but they kind of have like this sort of back and forth, and she's like, I'm not mad if he has somebody that he likes. But there was part of her that she felt that they connected on both of them being very lonely people. Felt awful. That was such like a sad sad, like raw moment for her. And then we talk about this later because Rhysand comes in and it's very clear that Feyre is a little jealous about him and Cressida, and he asks her, he's like, are you jealous? And she says that if she's jealous about Rhysand and Cressida, then he's jealous about her and Tarquin because she's been like smiling at him and being flirtatious, and Rhys is jealous. And he's like, the reason I'm jealous is because like the way you looked at him and said it would be easy to fall in love with him, which she did mean. Like, Tarquin is a good guy. And he seems very, like, easygoing and fun to be around. And Rhysand's like, I'm jealous that I am not that type of person. Like, I am not the person you could say that to. So Feyre does an important job right here. She kind of pushes Tarquin, and they go for a walk, and she is feeling out the area where he might be a little possessive. And she finds this, like, shack thing. She's like, oh, let's go over there. And he's very against it. Now we know where the other half of the Book of Breathings is. And Feyre feels awful because, like, Tarquin would be a really great ally for the Night Court, but they're gonna have to betray his trust and go get the Book of Breathings if he's not gonna give it to him, and he's not gonna give it to him. And the quest that we go on to retrieve this thing is insane. So Cassian and Azriel and Rhysand are trying to like kind of keep an eye on everything going on outside because Feyre has like a little bit of Tarquin's power. She's gonna be the only one that's able to actually get into this little shack thing and retrieve the book. And when she does, it recognizes that she's not Tarquin. And she's trying so hard. She's like, I am Tarquin, I am Tarquin. And it doesn't work. And she and Amren almost drown trying to retrieve this book. And it's a really great bonding moment for the two of them. Because they come out and she's like, Rhysand, why did you not come and save us? Like, did you not realize that we were literally about to drown? He's like, oh, I just couldn't feel it through the bond. Luckily, a couple of those water thingies came and saved them, and Amren doesn't know why, and Feyre says that she, let them off easy about the taxes with Tamlin. She ended up actually giving some jewelry to them so they could pay their debt, and that's why they're alive. So, the Book of Breathings is in this weird language that only Amren can read, because it's written by these super powerful beings that are not of this realm. And so Amren's gonna have to spend some time, decoding this whole thing. But she still needs the other piece. One of the big incentives for Amren here is that if she can put this all together, it might tell her how she can get back to her own world. Because she's stuck. She loves the inner circle, but she definitely doesn't quite belong there. Tarquin does send them some blood rubies, which is basically like, if I ever find you, I'm going to kill you. So that's not good. But Amren loves her because she loves shiny things and jewelry, and so she's using it as a paperweight, which I think is absolutely hilarious. We get another pull your kind of enemy out of a nightmare situation. This time it's Feyre waking up Rhysand. She asks him what was your nightmare about, and he tells her that there's some things that he doesn't even want to tell her about what happened under the mountain, and it's so sad. And she doesn't push it. She tells him that if he needs to talk to someone, she's gonna be there for him. And it's very clear that this means a lot to him. And right as she's about to leave, she looks back and the wings, and it's a really vivid picture. And in that moment, she thinks of what it would look like as a painting, how she would paint him. And this hasn't been happening for a while. In the beginning of ACOTAR, we get these very clear, all the time, Feyre's thinking about how it would look if she painted some of the stuff that she saw. She talks a lot about these artistic instincts that she has, and those almost entirely went away after going under the mountain because she'd been through so much. And now moments like these, especially around Rhysand, that instinct to want to create things is coming back, which I'm very excited about. I think it's very difficult to describe characters who do artsy stuff. A character that's just painting or drawing or writing or singing, I feel it's hard to describe that in a way that's really engaging. But being able to see how her instincts would play into that, not seeing her just painting all the time, but thinking about how things would look and what she would capture, and being able to see those details as opposed to just watching her try to paint an image. That's interesting. That was a long tangent. Back to your regular programming. It's time to meet up with the mortal queens. Azriel and Cassian are wearing these siphons, and apparently they both need to wear 7. You're only supposed to need 1. So how powerful they are. It's impressive and easy to forget. Maybe not so much with Azriel, but when we hang out with Cassian, I'm he's such just a dude. And then he comes in and it's a complete demeanor change. And I love that so much. And that's all Nesta's seen so far. I can't wait for her to get to see the other side of Cassian and to fall in love with it, even though she's not gonna want to. we're about to meet with these queens, and they do not walk in the door, they winnow in, which they should not be able to do because they're not fae. So they've managed to capture some of this magical power stuff for themselves. They're mostly interested in Feyre and how she went from being a human to turning into a fae. The thing is, they do not want to give up their half of the Book of Breathings. They don't want to give the fae all that power. And like, just their complete inability to budge on this issue, no matter how much the fae are like, if you don't do this, like, you know, some of the fairies might make it, but you are not gonna make it. To get the queens to trust us, we're going to show them Valeris, but we're not going to actually take them there because, like, I mean, Rhys has been so careful about protecting that area that he's not going to ever let anyone go in there. To show the queens, he's going to show them through this orb. The orb is in the Court of Nightmares, and oh man, this scene was intense because Mor's whole family runs the Court of Nightmares because Rhys doesn't want to hang out there. These are the people that sold Mor to be like a 17-year-old bride. So we do not like them, and Mor really doesn't want to go visit them, but whenever she does, like, she throws it back in her face that she did not do what they wanted her to do, which I loved that. The way she handled being around her family, even when she was so scared, was so good. Feyre knew that Under the Mountain was like modeled after the Court of Nightmares, and she's like, Under the Mountain was child's play. Like, the Court of Nightmares is so scary looking. Basically, to earn respect, like, Rhys really has to put on this air of being like kind of the horrible, sadistic person that most people think he is. You can tell that Rhys doesn't want Feyre to see that side of him. But when Rhys walks into the court and like is flanked by Cassian and Azriel, oh, it's such a good moment. It's like the double doors, and he like walks in and everyone's so scared. I love it so much. They're cuddled up on the throne and there was a lot of tension right there. But what's most important in this scene is that she uses this bond thing. Like, they can talk between their tattoo bonds. And she tells him, like, I can see through this mask. Like, I know it's not you. This isn't the real you, like the way you act in the Night Court. And that means so much to him. But they have such an intense moment that Feyre is literally about to burst into flames. And Rhys is like, you can't do that. Like, you cannot let them know that, like, you have all these powers. Like, they will lose their minds if they think that you have even a little bit of their power. They're gonna try and kill you. But while this distracting party is going on, Azriel is somewhere in the Court of Nightmares retrieving this orb that they need to show the queens Valeris. When Mor's father insults Feyre, I've never been so satisfied to see someone's arm break into 4 pieces. That night, when they have like the Star Festival, and Feyre's watching Rhys watch the others, and she's thinking like after 50 years, and it's still like he's watching this kind of like as their last fun moments together before they go into battle, and he just got them all back. So these stars are supposed to be like ancestors or spirits, and they float across the sky. And Rhys takes Feyre somewhere to watch it where there's less like noise and stuff like that. And it's very romantic until they both get hit in the face with stars. And Feyre smiles for the first time in like such a long time. And it's just such a cute moment. Oh my gosh. When Lucien finds Feyre while she's training, and he's trying to take her, and she's like backing away like, I am not going back to Tamlin, I'm not going. He like keeps lunging at her, trying to grab her so they can winnow away. Oh my gosh, I thought he was gonna do it, and I got so incredibly scared. I was pissed about that though, because like Lucien is her friend. Or was, but he's so like blindly loyal to Tamlin, he won't listen to her when she's saying like, no, do not take me away. Ugh, thank goodness that did not happen. We got the one bed trope, all the best tropes. And Feyre tells Rhys, and she's like, I mean, I'm used to like sharing, like she and her sisters had to share a bed all the time. Yeah, but not with your like super attractive, morally gray love interest. They have a moment, and I was so happy. And then Feyre tells him about her like dresser drawer at home and how she would paint on them, and she painted different things for her sisters, and on hers she painted the night sky, and it was like she knew that she belonged with him. And then Rhys thanks her for coming and saving him after he got hurt. And of course, because Rhys is hurt and there's poison in him, exactly like Katniss leaving the cave, goes and finds the Suriel, which is super dangerous. The Suriel says that you just need to have Rhys drink some of your blood, because I guess the extra magic in it or something, to heal him. And then he just drops the bomb that Rhys is her mate, which she has not recognized yet. And then she's like, does he know? And the Suriel is like, yeah. And she comes back and she's pissed. And she's like, here's some of my blood. Here's some of the plant that the cereal said you had to chew up. And oh, by the way, when were you gonna tell me? And then she's like, we need to leave right now. I need more to take me somewhere else where I don't have to be around you. At this point, I am a little confused because she clearly is in love with him. I feel like it would be a relief for her to find out they were meant to be together. So she goes to this house that's like a hideaway for the crew and paints for a while and has a good long think about things until Reese finally shows up and they finally talk and she officially like accepts him as her mate by giving him that food. So that was like a weird ritual thing. I will not be taking questions about chapter 55 at this time. When they show the Queen's Valeris and they end up coming actually to Valeris and attacking, I was unwell. Our crew had to fight so hard to save Valeris, even though like so much of it, Cameron just absolutely like Zeusing, is that a word? Like lightning bolts everywhere and there's thunder and she's seeing like Reese like using his full power and she's able to use like her different powers to defend things, like she's sending like the water wolves or something. That was such a good visual scene. I hate battle scenes. And I loved that scene. But it was so sad because it felt like, you know, their last like special thing that hadn't been touched by war was like finally contaminated. I was upset about that. When they break in and they're trying to destroy the cauldron and they give Feyre the 2 parts of the book and the book is talking to her and it's like, put me together. And beforehand, everyone was like, Feyre, you cannot put the 2 pieces of the book together. It'll be too powerful. And what does she do? When it all turns out to be a trick and Lucien and Tamlin are there with the King of Hybern, I lost my mind. I was so upset. Also, Jurian is there, like reincarnated but crazy because he spent the past 50 years, longer than that, trapped in Amarantha's like necklace, seeing all this terrible stuff. He's lost his mind. He wants to find his girlfriend, Miriam, who may or may not be dead. We can figure that out later because when Lucien and Tamlin were right there watching as like the King of Hybern trapped the inner circle. How? I get that Tamlin was angry. Partnering with King Hybern, who's going to take over the world and then kill everyone? No! Tamlin says that like he partnered with the King of Hybern to get her back. And I think he thinks this is like some romantic gesture, but I was like, sir. The King of Hybern's like, you're gonna comply because I have your sisters. And the queens walk out and they're going to be using the cauldron to turn into Fae, which we remember they were so interested in how Feyre did it. They bring out her 2 sisters who are like bound and gagged and they're gonna throw them in the cauldron to see if they make it. Like if going into the cauldron really can turn you into a Fae. And Elaine goes in and she comes out a Fae. And it's so upsetting. Cause like of course I want all 3 sisters to be fairies together, but like seeing Elaine and how much she was so afraid of becoming a Fae, of Fae in general, when she comes out, it's so depressing. And then they put Nesta in, and I couldn't believe Elaine was alive. Nesta goes in, and Feyre's like, something is different this time, and Nesta is pissed. And she comes out, and Lucien sees, first of all, Lucien is over here, like, doing nothing. This guy could have done so much more. And he sees Elaine come out of the cauldron, she's a Fae now, and he goes like, oh my gosh, you're my mate. First of all, called it. Second of all, Nesta's like, absolutely not. She comes out of the cauldron, does not care she's a Fae. She's like, everyone get off of my Elaine, she's mine. And Feyre realizes, like, there is no good way out of this. So she basically tells Reese through the bond, like, take care of my sisters. And then she, like, pretends that she's, like, snapping out of this weird reality with Rhys and she's like, Tamlin, like, take me away from these people. And she tells King Hybern to, like, break the bond between them, between her and Rhys, so she could go with Tamlin. And then we get this last chapter of Rhys, like, actually Feyre's acting. Like, the whole inner circle is like, we have to go get Feyre back. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you okay with her going with Tamlin? And Rhys like, actually, we got married last night and now she's just gonna spy on Tamlin from the spring court. Incredible. And then we go to see Feyre's point of view and she is in the spring court with Tamlin, who completely believes that Feyre is like his again. And then the book ends. So like there's a lot of loose ends for next time. We have to destroy the cauldron. We have to stop King Hybern. We have to help Elaine and Nesta, who are probably not gonna be okay. We have to break Tamlin as a person and get our way back to Rhysand. So there's a lot to do. Also, we're probably gonna have to destroy Jurian. We're gonna have to figure out everybody else's love stories, because now that Feyre and Rhysand are together forever, we have so many other people who need to fall in love, including Cassian and Nesta. I don't know what's wrong with them, that they're, you know, or at least Cassian, he's been Fae longer. I'm figuring that's why Elaine hasn't felt the mating bond thing when she saw Lucian, because like Feyre didn't. I guess it takes a while to become used to being a Fae. I don't know. But Cassian should have felt it, right? This book was amazing and so dramatic. I love it so much. I feel like that was the absolute most chaotic review I've possibly made so far. What was your favorite part? I really think like I loved when they went to the Court of Nightmares. That was just so like, no! A 9 out of 10. This is great. It's so good. Maybe a 10 out of 10. I need to read the rest of the series like so fast. ASAP. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe so we can talk about more book stuff. My name's Katelyn. Thanks for watching. Bye!